Welcome to the Chairlift, the podcast where we talk all things snowboarding. On today's show, we're going to talk about introducing your kids to competitive snowboarding. I'm your host, Snowboard Mom, snowboarder for 28 years. So let's dive into it. So as you may know, my two boys are doing competitive snowboarding, and my youngest started when he was about 6 years old, while my oldest started when he was about the same age. I believe he was 6 years old. I also did competitive snowboarding as a teenager growing up, and so did my husband. So let's dive into it. How did we get into it? Competitive snowboarding has changed quite a bit since I used to compete. In that when I was competing, there were no coaches. There were no age categories. Heck, in some cases, there wasn't even a category between guys and ladies. So there was just one category that was open, and we all went for it. Over time, what happened was, they added a women's category, especially in big air. I know often they'd be like, nah, the girls are not going to be hitting a big jump like this, so we're not even going to make a women's category. But eventually, the girls did step it up and often petitioned to have a category. So eventually here we are with different categories, and as snowboarding grew, we got age categories. So here in the province of Quebec, we have a category for U9. There is U11. And when it's U9, I should say it's under 9. So it would be kids ages 8 and under. And then U11 would be snowboarders age 10 and under, U13, U15, and then I believe after U15 is when you fall into an open category where it is everyone against each other. So you'll have, a 25-year-old against a 17-year-old, for example. So why did I get into competitive snowboarding, into contests? Well, I recognize that I loved snowboarding. I wanted to make friends snowboarding. I wanted to get recognized as well for my skills at snowboarding. So I started to compete. It also developed a sense of discipline for me in not giving up, because you really have a purpose to land certain tricks or to get better at it. And it cultivated an enormous amount of grit. So I recognize that with my kids as well. Between you and I have one kid that doesn't necessarily excel at academics, and he doesn't get rewarded at school. Or if he does get rewarded at school, it's very, very rarely. He's in a special program now for school, but before he went into that special program, he was never rewarded at school, ever. And so that made a really big difference for his self-esteem to try snowboarding, have some grit at it, but also see some wins. Meanwhile, my other son, he is much more successful at school, but we're seeing that, in snowboarding, it's really teaching him grit. He is not the biggest rider, and so he's excelling a bit more in the freestyle side of things, but in snowboard cross, he's had a snowboard cross win this year, but it really developed that sense of grit in him. That is why we love snowboarding, in competing in snowboarding, but not just that too, but we find that it's a great family activity. Unlike something like football or soccer or hockey, you can participate as a parent as well. So we're spending the day on the hill with them. If your kids are signed up to something like hockey or soccer, you're just checking it out on the sidelines. You're not participating. While snowboarding, we get to snowboard all day with our kids. It is amazing. You don't have to be an expert snowboarder parent for your kids to compete in snowboarding. But you can certainly join them on the hill during the week or during the weekends when they're not competing. So it is really great for that. How do you get your kids into competitive snowboarding? Well, first they need to have, a basic skill level. They already need to be able to go down a hill. I want to say you want them to be able to go down at least a blue run. And from there on, there's many different competitions where you can initiate them to competitions. Now, back when I was competing, there were no coaches, or there were very few coaches. But now you're seeing that most of the competitions that you're going to, the majority of the athletes that are there, the majority of the grums that are snowboarding and competing have a coach with them. Now, if you've competed in the past in either, snowboarding or skiing, nothing is preventing you from signing up your kids to their first snowboard competition without a coach. And of course, often what they will do is, introduce you to a local coach when you do sign up to that first competition so that, they have someone to ask questions if they do have them. Just make the people aware when you're signing them up that this is the case, that, hey, this is my son or my daughter. This is their first competition. They don't have a coach. Is there a coach that can accompany them at the top? And that is a great way for coaches to recruit, but not just that, also for clubs to recruit and for your son or daughter to also get acquainted with some of the other snowboarders that coach is coaching. Okay, so if you're not sure whether your son or daughter are ready for their first competition, my advice to you would be to find a competitive club. Now, how would you find a competitive club? They're not always easy to find because not every ski hill has a competitive club. So most of the competitive snowboard clubs have programs where it's either initiation to competition, or even they'll have a grassroots program where the snowboarders are not yet competing, but, they're sort of developing them towards that first competition. So these programs are a little bit beyond basic instruction. You don't always find them at all the snow schools on each and every ski resort. So in Canada, the best way to find a competitive snowboard club is to go to your provincial association and ask whether there is a competitive club, or often it will be listed on their website. So in Ontario or Quebec or Nova Scotia, for example, you would look up Ontario Snowboard or Quebec Snowboard or Nova Scotia Snowboard, and that provincial association will be able to help you out. If you're in the US, my advice would be to look up the USASA competition series, and often there are clubs associated with those competition series that you can look into. And those clubs will have qualified coaches. They'll have people that are experienced with competitions. They'll have a good idea of the skill level required. So that is a really great way of getting into it. So when you're going to be looking for a snowboard club, of course, proximity is going to be important. So is the hill and the disciplines that they train on. So not every club, for example, has a snowboard cross, and not every club has a freestyle element to it. So depending on what you want to develop in your athlete, you're going to want to take a look at that. Not just that, but you're going to want to find a coach that is certified. In Canada, you want a coach that is certified by Canada Snowboard. And if you're interested in becoming a coach, you can listen to episode 4, which talks a little bit about that. It's really important also to not just find a coach that, especially as it's a young athlete that's just being initiated to competition. You want a coach that is going to foster fun, because that is the most important. If the kids aren't having fun, they will leave competition early. And we have seen that time and time again across different circuits in Canada. Our snowboarders that get into it, their parents are a little bit too overzealous. Training becomes too arduous, and so the kids just decide they don't want to do it anymore. So super important to make sure that your kids are jiving with the coach, they're getting along with the kids in the program. And not just that, but these programs also really help kids make friends. I know both of my kids have a wonderful time with the kids that are also in their competitive programs. They're at different skill levels, of course, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that they have fun. So another consideration that you're going to want to take is the different gear that might be involved in competitive snowboarding. Of course, if you're going to be doing a slopestyle competition versus a snowboard cross competition, that might require different gear, different boards. So do take that into consideration. I mean, when you're at a younger level, that is probably not a requirement until, you hit a more competitive age, because some of these specialized boards, for example, some of the snowboard cross race boards can be quite expensive. Same thing with some of the hard boot slalom boards. I mean, you're really getting into a whole other game. You're also probably going to want to get some experience waxing boards, for example, if your son or daughter are more interested in something like racing. And not just that, but what's going to happen in competitive snowboarding is they may not see wins right away. I know my son Kai didn't see wins right away, especially because he was so young compared to other kids. He didn't see the age difference, but we certainly did. And it really reinforced that sense of grit in him. And now he is winning. And at the same time, once in a while, when Ollie doesn't win or Kai doesn't win, we have to, point out, look, you won last time. You can't win all the time. It's a great life lesson. But not only that, but you need to also point out that they're not the only ones that didn't end up on the podium, right? And then when they do see that success, they also recognize what it feels like for their competitors to not succeed. So let's be honest, getting your kids into competitive snowboarding is maybe a little bit, I don't know. It depends how far you want to take it. It is, in your hands. However, when you do get to a high level but not quite the pro level, it can become quite expensive. I do know that there were some figures about, athletes doing the NORAM levels, for example, and that would cost over $30,000 in a season. At the young level, if your kids are only doing a regional circuit, it still can cost quite a bit if you're traveling all over the province or all over the states, for example, or like eastern states, and, in lift passes as well, and entry fees, not to mention the equipment. Now, a few tricks to save some money. Get to know the organizers and volunteer. You don't need to be a snowboard expert to volunteer. And when you're there, you still get to see your mini shred compete. And you often get a free lift pass for yourself. So take that into account. One thing you might want to take into consideration when choosing a snowboard club is, whether that club only does freestyle or only does racing. And the reason that we say that is you want to give your snowboarder the chance to explore all disciplines and also be able to work on all of their skill sets. So you just don't want them to become, for example, a rider that sure can go really fast down the hill, but is afraid to go off a jump, for example. Or a snowboarder that can do some really technical tricks on a rail, but to be quite honest, they have trouble simply turning on snow. Those are things to consider. But not only that, it allows your mini shred or your athlete to experience all the different disciplines and discover what they might be good at and what they might not be good at. I like to take myself, for example. When I started competing, I really thought that I was going to be good at snowboard cross because I was really solid on my feet. However, what I discovered was I really wasn't that great at snowboard cross because I wasn't heavy enough. And because I was a solid rider, I had a solid base to become a good freestyle athlete. Meanwhile, you have other kids that, they might want to be really great at freestyle, but they simply don't necessarily have the guts to do all of these tricks, or they might not have the coordination to do all of these tricks, but are really solid and maybe are able to gain that speed on the racing side and discover that they actually like racing rather than freestyle or vice versa. But essentially, visit Quebec Snowboard, visit Ontario Snowboard, visit Nova Scotia Snowboard. Quebec Snowboard right now has the Yeti series. It is designed for riders under the age of 13. It is a wonderful introduction to competition series. We love it. We are trying to hit up each and every one of those competitions this winter. So we are basically going all over Quebec. Last weekend, we were in Val St-Come. We did the snowboard cross and we had a great time. Each and every one of our athletes in our Mavericks Competitive Snowboard Club ended up on the podium. So shout out to the team. Essentially, we love this because it not only brings us parents out on the ski hill to go shred, but it also really fosters confidence, resilience, and not just that, but teamwork in the sense of team support for our kids. So 2 weeks ago, not everyone ended up on the podium, and that was fine. We still had some riders end up on the podium. This week, they all ended up on the podium. And that's the way it goes. There is a lot of learning, life skills that are developed through competitive sport. That is it for today. If you have any questions whatsoever about getting your kids into competitive snowboarding, I know it is, a little bit, it's a little bit intimidating, but feel free to reach out. We just founded a competitive snowboard club in the Ottawa-Gatineau area. You can check us out. We also have a social club called the Gathering Groms. Find our group on Facebook. And if not, just send me a text message through Spotify or Apple Podcast. You'll find that link to send me a text in the show notes, and I can hook you up with that. So last segment, I told you a little bit earlier in the show that the kids last weekend, or my mini shreds last weekend, competed at Val St-Come. So they competed actually 2 weekends in a row. The first weekend, they competed in slopestyle, and our little man Kai got second place in the U9 boys. So that was really fun. But shout out also to some of our friends that also ride with the Mavericks crew. Matteo Guido, he got first place in the U13. Emmy Guido, she got third place in the U11. So shout out to those guys. And then last weekend, we did the snowboard cross. So like I said, everyone ended up on the podium. Ollie got second in the U13. Kai got first in the U9. And then in our girls, we got Fiona that got second place in the U13, and Blair that got third place in the U11s. Huge congrats to all of our riders. That was an amazing weekend. Now, I want to talk about Val St-Come. I'm not going to lie here. I think it might be my favorite snowboard resort in Quebec. They have a park that is good for beginner and intermediate. So, they've got medium-sized jumps as well as flat boxes and other, rail features that are intermediate, which is great. I can hit that up. My kids or my mini shreds are able to hit that up. And then they have a more advanced park. So if you guys are familiar with Seb Toots, that is where Seb trained as a child and as a teenager. That's where he developed his skills on massive booters. So you have the advanced park for all you shreds out there that are able to handle sizable jumps. Not just that, but it is one of the few ski resorts in Quebec that has a snowboard cross track. So that snowboard cross track is on the backside of the mountain near the auberge, which is awesome. There are, few hills that have a snowboard cross track. So there is a club there, and shout out to Survolt that maintains that track. So we got to use it. And not just that, but there were no crowds. There were no crowds at Val St-Come. What a nice change of scenery. I mean, they get it. They do the line management. The chalet is comfortable. They've got a nice bar as well. There are microwaves for you to microwave your food. And not just that, but when there is snow, they have some nice glades and a nice variety of runs. So shout out to Val St-Come. I think you get the prize for my very favorite ski hill in Quebec. I mean, yeah, we've got some larger ski resorts like Mont Saint-Anne and Mont Tremblant, but they just don't have the terrain parks or the crowd management skills that Val St-Come has. Again, if you're in the Ottawa-Gatineau area, we also host a bunch of Grom events, and so these are more like social events. They are for all skill-leveled Groms. Our next one is going to be at Vorlage on February 6th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and that is going to be the Galactic Challenge. The Galactic Challenge is a challenge where Groms get to try to collect points or stickers, I believe, for doing a number of things. So they have a passport. There's everything from, do the run named Easy Street, to find a Pokemon on the hill, to do a 360 off a jump, for example. So you can collect points, and there is something out there for every skill level. That event is sponsored by a number of shred companies. So come out and experience something with your mini shred. And hey, come and experience some stuff with your mini shred and come and have fun, make friends. Guess what? If they don't have friends snowboarding, they may not stick to it. Kids want to ride with other kids. So come on out, make some friends. Our mini shreds want to make friends too. And on the next Chairlift episode, I'll be interviewing my good friend, Katie Tsuyuki. Katie went to the 2018 Sochi Olympics, riding in halfpipe for Canada, and we will hear her story on what she had to do to get there and what she's doing now working in the snowboard industry. That's it for today. If you liked our show, please rate and review, smash that 5-star rating on whatever app you're listening from, and follow the show. Raise the bar. Shred on.